Hi, so in the last video that we recorded, we had Priscilla show you guys how to make a mask using a traditional sewing machine, and I'm going to show you guys, if you don't have a sewing machine, how to make it out of fabric with just a needle and thread. And I don't have any pins, which kind of makes it a little bit harder, so if you have pins, go ahead and use them. I'm just going to show you our materials. So I have two pieces here of white fabric, and there's Sharpie marks on there because that's what I use to map them out. They are 6 inches by 9 inches, and I've made my masks 3-ply. So this is my outer layer. This is my Hufflepuff fabric because I'm a Hufflepuff. I have 2 pieces of elastic here that I've cut to 6 inches. So the same materials as Priscilla used. You could also use hair bands cut in half and sew one on either side. I have white fabric in here, and this is not fabric, white thread, and this is all purpose, so it's going to be a little bit stronger than your typical thread. I have a sewing needle, and I have some scissors here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my fabric together, and how I'm going to do that is I'm going to make sure my white fabric is lined up. They're not exactly even, but that's okay. So we're going to make sure my white fabric is lined up. I'm ready to go. And then we're going to put my fabric, so this is the right side of the fabric, so I'm going to put it down with the right side facing the white fabric. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start stitching that. Okay, so I have put the thread on my needle. It's just your basic, you thread it through the needle and then you loop it around and you tie a knot at the ends. And I've already started my stitching here. And so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the needle, and I've got it on the white side, and I'm going to stick the needle into the fabric on the white side, maybe about 1/8 of an inch. I can't sew in a straight line, so it really doesn't matter because we're going to turn this out anyway, so you're not going to see these stitches. It just matters if they're strong. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here to the end of my stitch, and I'm going to put my needle in, and I don't have a thimble either, so I'm just going to pull it through like that. Okay, and I'm going to flip it to the other side. So that stitch came out kind of in the middle of my other stitch, and that's basically what I'm going to do. So I'm going to come back up here, okay, and I'm going to do another stitch in here. Okay, and then I'm just going to flip it around and go backwards on the white side. So I'm sewing forwards on the colored side, so I'm going up on the colored side. So I'm going to go forwards this way on the colored side, and then I am going to sew back in this empty space here on the white side. And I'm going to keep doing that through the entire length of the fabric. Okay, so I went ahead and I stitched a straight line down one side of my fabric. And this is kind of what happens when you don't pin. Your fabric kind of moves a little bit, but that's okay. We'll just pin it down anyway. Alright, so we made our straight line here. And what I'm going to do now is I've left a couple inches here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to sew my elastic in. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to peel back my white layer here. We can see that it is very solidly stitched down here. And I'm going to sew it like this, with it vertically sitting here. And so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that this elastic is sewn on the inside. So when we turn it out, I'm going to sew it here, and we're going to have to stretch it a little bit. And this is where pins come in handy, I'm not going to lie. And I'm going to sew it here. Okay, so I'm just going to sew it at these 2 points. I'm going to start by sewing it up here. And I'm going to do that by turning it this way, I guess, and do it like that. And again, very helpful if we had some pins, but I don't, so I'm going to show you guys how to do it like that. So I've pinched that in there, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure and put my needle through the elastic so it doesn't go anywhere. So I've done that. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my needle again through this elastic here. And I'm just gonna make sure that my elastic has been hit. And oh, I missed it the first time, so that's okay. We're gonna come back and make sure our elastic is sitting there. I'm sorry, this is hard to see. It's a little hard to do. And I am just going to stab my elastic. And this time I have it. So I have my elastic in there now. And I'm just gonna pull it. And I'm just gonna do a couple stitches over and over and over again in the same area, just to make sure that my elastic stays put in there, just so it doesn't come out when we're tugging on it. Alright, so I've gone ahead and I've stitched down everything, and my elastic is stitched down on both sides. And remember, I did the same thing. I stitched them both in the corner, and I will show you what I'm talking about. So I've left some room here, and I've tied off my stitches so it's ready to roll. And I'm just going to pull this inside out. And I'm going to use my elastic to help bring it along. And I'm still going to be gentle with it because these are hand stitches. They're not going to be as strong as sewing machine stitches, but they can be if they're done right, which honestly I really doubt I've done them right. So I've pulled this out, and this is what we have here. We have this raw edge down here, and this is so far our finished turned out mask. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to sew this together. We're going to make sure that that is nice and tight and ready to go. And then we're going to do our pleats over here, and we're going to eyeball them, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've finished stitching our fabric down. I've stitched down the top and the bottom just to make it look a little bit more cohesive. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the pleats. So now we have this flat thing, and I'll trim these threads and stuff later. And I've got my needle and my thread ready to go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to eyeball this because I still don't have pins, but I just want to show you how to do it without pins. And I'm going to maybe come down to about here, and I'm going to pinch it, and I'm going to fold it over. And we see how that looks and how that makes a nice pleat. And we're going to do two of these. So there's going to be one down there, and then we're going to make another one down here, and it'll be like a medical mask. So what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to fold it, I'm going to eyeball it, I'm going to make sure it kind of looks even, and I'm just going to stitch down the first side first. Pause it. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've stitched down these two pleats. The needle is a little hard to get through because it's about 6 or 7 layers of fabric there, and so I would use a thimble if you have one. If not, you can wrap your finger around a washcloth. I don't have one, but I'm still able to do it. So I've made them nice and tight. So here's our first pleats, and I'm just going to, again, I'm just going to eyeball it, and I'm going to fold this in half, and then I'm going to sew these down, and then we'll do a try-on test. Alright, so this is our finished product. As you can see, I put our pleats in and I eyeballed it, and so when it stretches out like this, it'll be able to fit your face a little bit better. This is a little hard to get through, I'm not gonna lie, I've tore my fingers, but that's okay. And I'm gonna give this to Jessica because I've actually made this for her, and she's gonna model it for us.
Jessica, Hufflepuff. Oh, yay! It fits perfect.
Okay, and that's how you make a mask from scratch with a nail and thread. Thank you.